everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Sorry for the really unusual location. I'm actually sat in the car. I just dropped my mum off at the dentist and I'm actually just waiting for her to get out. But I knew that I probably wouldn't get any revision done whilst I was waiting for her. I'd probably just end up scrolling my phone, to be honest. So I thought, you know what, I will film a video whilst I am waiting for her and try and edit it whenever I can. So, sorry, but makes a change. So, firstly, as you may know, I've actually changed the name of my channel from Joe's Journey to Medicine to the Grad Med Journey. And I'm not going to talk about this in too much detail, but basically I wanted to change it because I wanted to take it sort of away from the personal aspect of it and make it more sort of generic. But also I didn't want it to focus on just the journey to medicine. I wanted to talk about my journey throughout medicine as well. And so that's why I've tried not to use to medicine in the name, so that's why I've just called it the Grad Med Journey, because obviously I like to focus on graduate entry medicine, because I don't think there are that many videos out there on YouTube about graduate entry medicine in the UK. Obviously there is Ollie's videos, who makes great videos, but I'm not aware of many other YouTubers. There might be a couple, but there certainly aren't a lot in comparison to undergraduate medicine, which is why, again, I focus on graduate entry medicine, as well as the fact that I speak from personal experience. I'm not an expert in this whatsoever, and I don't claim to be. This is about my personal experience and tips that I have found useful over my course of the application process and whilst I'm still in medical school. So moving on from that, as you can see from the title of this video, I wanted to talk to you today about work experience and how you can get work experience, what counts as good work experience, what sorts of work experience might not be acceptable for medical schools to use, and things like that. I get a lot of questions from you guys asking about, is my work experience acceptable? Have I done enough? Where can I get more work experience? What is good work experience? And so that is what gave me the inspiration to do this video. So firstly, what is good work experience? So good work experience, I think, is experience that gives you an understanding of what it is like to work in a healthcare environment, to interact with patients, families, relatives and friends, as well as other members of staff, other healthcare professionals. A key defining factor, I think, in what makes work experience good or not is if it provides you with hands-on patient contact, if you are dealing directly with patients themselves, because at the end of the day that is what a doctor does. They are dealing with patients every single day, and having the experience of being in a clinical environment and speaking to patients is really important. You need to be involved in their care and specifically their health care, and as a result of that you should be able to have an understanding as to what it is like to be a patient, what it is like to be stuck, say, in hospital, or what it is like to be affected by specific conditions or problems. Obviously, some of you may have been patients in hospitals, for example, yourselves, but not everyone experiences hospital in the same way. Some people have really positive experiences, but sometimes people don't have such positive experiences, and you can use those experiences to learn from, develop your communication skills, your bedside manner, things like that. In addition to having that experience, you're going to know what it's like to interact with other healthcare professionals, to work with other members of staff in a clinical environment. You'll probably realise the importance of multidisciplinary teams and how they work together, and different disciplines within medicine and specialties often really have to work together in order to achieve the best possible healthcare for patients. So that's what I think makes good work experience. But what specific roles could that include? So For me personally, I would highly recommend trying to get a part-time job or even on the bank as a healthcare assistant. So that can be in a hospital, that can be in a GP's practice, that can be in a nursing home, it can be in a care home. There are so many different types of healthcare that you can get experience in. It's not just primary healthcare, so GP, or hospitals. There are so many different options, and so you shouldn't feel limited as that you have to get work experience in a hospital, because that absolutely isn't true. If you're having hands-on patient contact, then that is all that matters. If you're unable to get a job as a healthcare assistant in, say, a hospital or a GP, you could also try and get experience as a care worker to go into people's homes and give care to patients and people at home, because they need that extra support, and it is really important to give people this care, because without it a lot of them wouldn't be able to live independently, and independence is so important in maintaining sort of self-esteem and confidence and just generally mental well-being. So I personally don't have much experience in this, but I would recommend trying to go through an official agency or organisation to make sure that you are protected, but also your patients are protected as well. Obviously, if you are, say, a nurse, a paramedic, a pharmacist, a physician's assistant or associate, nutritionist or dietitian, obviously all of those roles really are based around patient contact, so you could definitely use that as work experience. But you also want to find something specific to being a doctor. In addition to being a healthcare assistant, I'd also highly recommend maybe trying to get some volunteering work done, because this shows that you're not just doing it for your medicine application. It shows that you're actually passionate about helping people, and that is obviously really important for medicine. So you can volunteer again in hospitals, you can volunteer in nursing homes, hospices. GPs not so much, they don't really have that many volunteering roles, but definitely hospitals, definitely care homes, definitely nursing homes, and definitely hospices. They are all really good places which you can just try and get some volunteering experience, whether that's 2 hours every Friday night, which is what I used to do, or it can be 1 hour a couple of times a week. Whatever suits you best. I'd try and make it a little bit long term, so maybe over the course of 6 months, a year, 2 years, something like that, just to show that you're really committed. But also a lot of hospitals, if you are volunteering at a hospital, they make you sign a contract which basically states that you need to be volunteering for a certain minimum amount of time. So for me, I think it was a 1-year contract. But you shouldn't really feel bound by it. Like, if I hadn't moved away from Birmingham to study medicine, I would probably still be volunteering there, because I really, really did enjoy it, and it was really beneficial, and I actually learned so much. One of the key things I learned was how important just making a cup of tea for someone can be, or having a quick chat with a parent about anything that is not related to their child being ill, or having illnesses, or their care. Just having a conversation about something completely different can really make a difference, and a positive one too. So one of the things I did to really know that I wanted to do medicine was I shadowed doctors. And you might be thinking, if you don't have any family or friends who are in the medical profession, how on earth you are going to get work experience shadowing a doctor? And I was honestly in the exact same position when I was trying to get this work experience, because I did this work experience back when I was 16, and obviously I can't use it in my hours towards applying for graduate entry medicine, but it was still so beneficial, and I could still talk about it in interviews because I learnt so much from it. So how I would recommend you getting experience shadowing doctors, or it might not even be a doctor. You could shadow, for example, a pharmacist or a radiologist, someone like that. What I would do is and it sounds really silly, but write like a covering letter, and it can be quite a standard generic letter saying introducing yourself, that you'd want to apply for some work experience shadowing, why you want to do that, and you'd basically say because you're applying for medicine. You might want to give a more specific reason within that, so don't just say you're applying for medicine. You might want to say that you're really interested in learning about how doctors and the NHS work, and you really want some hands-on experience of shadowing. You might also want to say where you are currently in like your life, so whether you're currently in your degree, your undergraduate degree, or if you're on a gap year, or if you're working and what job you currently do. Give a bit of sort of background information, and then also try and write a CV and include all your academic qualifications, so GCSEs, A-levels, degrees, masters, PhDs if you have one, anything like that, as well as sort of other activities that you do, whether that's other work experience you've done, other volunteering that you have been doing as well, things like that. Send that letter to doctors in areas or specialties that interest you. So for me personally, I think I sent out my letter and my CV to probably about 20 different consultants, sort of around where I live. You can actually find consultants' names and email addresses through the NHS website, or you can find details of their secretaries online as well. And it takes a bit of guts to do it the first time, but they honestly don't mind receiving emails. If worst comes to the worst, they're just not going to reply. They're just going to ignore your email. Like, you're not going to lose anything by trying to email them. So try and get their contacts, email them. You may want, if you have a telephone number, you can call them up and ask them if it's okay to email them your details. Some hospitals also have work experience schemes for prospective or hopeful medical students, which you can also apply in the same way. Sometimes there are forms that you need to fill in, but often there is information on their websites. In terms of trying to get volunteering experience, it can be a little bit easier, but at the same time it can be a bit more difficult to find the information that you are looking for. So if you are trying to get volunteering work in a hospital, often on the websites, the NHS websites, there is a section actually for people who want to volunteer, and it's normally under like the Work For Us section of the website. Often there's a telephone number or an email address. If there's an email address, again, I would attach maybe a covering letter and a CV. They might not look at it, but at the end of the day, it's good to show that you are prepared and it's something that you really want to do, because if you just send a really quick informal email, then they might not take you that seriously. Obviously I hope that they would, no matter what, but it's really good to show that you are professional, and it is something that you are going to have to do all throughout your medical, not just degree, but also your medical career. So it's really good to get into those sorts of habits as early as possible. So there'll be a form, you fill it in, and often there's a process that involves interviews and meetings and things like that. So it can take a little while, but be patient and stick with it, because hopefully you will really get a lot out of it. It's not just applying for medicine and sort of completing all the tick box and jumping through loops. It's really not about that at all. It's learning from the experiences. Another thing I'd just like to quickly mention is that it's really good to get a wide variety of experience. So even if you are really, really interested in, say, I don't know, paediatrics, it's really good to sort of push yourself out of your comfort zone, because throughout your medical degree you're not going to be able to just study paediatrics. Like, you're going to be exposed to so many different fields, and it's really good to have that diversity of experience before you actually get into the degree, because that's what your life is going to be. So I'd highly recommend trying to get both adult and child work experience if possible, but also it's good to get experience in different environments, so GPs, hospitals, nursing homes, things like that, because community and primary care is just as important as hospital care. So those are examples of good work experience. I'd just like to quickly list a couple of placements that, although might initially seem like good ideas, may not be that beneficial to your medicine application. So firstly would be to work as a receptionist or secretary or ward clerk in a hospital environment. I know you're in the hospital environment and you will be speaking to patients and their relatives, but you're not necessarily giving hands-on care related to their health. It's not health care oriented. So I wouldn't really get a job as that specifically for your medical application. Another thing that I wouldn't really recommend using as work experience would be, say, babysitting, childminding, coaching, tutoring, teaching, anything like that. Again, you are probably going to be interacting with adults, children, patients, but again, you're not involved in their care as such. You're not seeing the intricacies of the healthcare environment, the clinical healthcare environment, and so that's why I wouldn't really recommend those either. I know I've spoken quite a bit about volunteering, but again, charity work, unless you are involved in in providing medical care, I wouldn't necessarily use. So working in a charity shop wouldn't probably count, or working on like a stall at a fundraising event like that wouldn't necessarily count. So try and steer away from charity work purely for medicine. Obviously charity work in general is really good and it's for a good cause, but for your medicine application it wouldn't prove to be that useful, so I wouldn't put it down on the form. A final point that I'd just like to mention is that some universities have a limit as to how many hours of paid work you can use, and in addition to this, a lot of universities would like you to have at least 2 different forms within a certain time period. This does depend obviously on what universities you're applying to, so check with the specific university website because it will have the information on there, and they will also tell you what sorts of work experience they deem to be acceptable or not acceptable. It can be tempting to email them all individually if your experience is acceptable or not, but obviously universities get a lot of emails, and if every medicine applicant was to email asking if their experience was acceptable or not, they would never get any work done. So try not to email. All the universities will have information on their websites about what is acceptable, how many hours do you need, what proportion of those hours can be paid, and if you need paid and voluntary. The website and the information there is in more than enough detail, so you should be able to just base from their online information. Finally, I'd just like to emphasize the importance of making sure you have documentation that proves you have done your work experience. And that can be formed in the emails confirming your placements. It can be in the form of letters, because when you are applying for medicine, often universities are going to want proof that you have actually carried out this work experience and you're not just listing things on the forms. So try and get proof, keep any correspondence that you have, and if possible, try to get letters from the places you are getting your work experience from, just confirming that you have done a work placement with them, how many hours, for how long, and a brief sort of explanation as to exactly what you did. Maybe try and let them know that the medical schools might be contacting them in the future just to confirm that you have actually carried out this work experience. I hope this video has helped you in figuring out what work experience you need to do and what counts as good work experience. I hope it has been helpful and useful, but obviously if you have any questions, I will try to answer them. You can leave them down in the comments below, or you can send me a message over on Instagram or Twitter. I'm quite active on Instagram when I'm not making videos, so be sure to follow me there. Thank you all so much for watching, and I shall see you next time. Bye!